Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Blanket Fort Recording Booth with Shane. Today we're going to talk about automation in Audacity and how it can save you time, make you much more efficient in the booth and in your post-processing. We all have things we do to our work almost constantly, and in Audacity, yes, you can run plugins to, live filter and live change your work. I don't like doing that because I find my perfect audio settings one day are not my perfect audio settings the next day, but there are things I almost always do. So what I'm going to talk about here is just getting your basic audio settings so that you can quickly automate your work, especially if you're doing quick turnaround projects, things that just simple reads that don't require a lot of work. Again, to get us to the point where we can do a 30-second read and submit the audition in a minute or less. I would love to say I'm at that point, but I still make too many more. As you can see right now, without a script, I do it, but even with a script, I trip over my own tongue, and usually it takes me one or two takes. Every now and then I get really lucky and just read out the thing in one take. That's more the exception than the norm, so I was sitting at roughly 5 minutes for a 30-second read by the time I was done. With this automation, I've actually got myself down to 2 or 3 minutes. So this saves me on average a minute to a minute and a half with a standard edition. So hopefully this will help you guys do the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to read this sample piece I've got up on the screen for you, and we're going to talk about using the keyboard to be more effective. Because personally, I don't like having my hands on the mouse. One, the mouse is, it just takes away from the movement, creates more room in the noise, versus just reaching forward and touching your keyboard. You then have like one click to remove versus, sliding on the chair, spinning. There's just all kinds of extra noises that we don't need to add. So the very first thing is we're going to go back to one of my earlier videos and about leaving yourself a sample of room noise. So that's very important, and this is part of our automation process. And what we're going to do that is we are going to make sure we leave at least 2 seconds of leading room noise. It's just a good habit to get into. It gets you that nice kind of before you start. So that's what we're going to do, and then we're going to report it. And then we are going to record this piece and move forward. So we're in Audacity. We're going to hit R to start recording. Automation in Audacity. This is a simple voice script to show what might need to be done to a given piece to clean it up. You hit space to stop recording. Bob's your uncle. I haven't had to touch my mouse yet. Now when we take a look at this little piece of audio right here, you can see that one, it is very quiet. And one of that is I'm a lot further away from the mic than I normally am when I'm recording something for a client. And two, this mic sounds great, but it is very quiet and takes a lot of gain to be useful, and the more gain I use, the more room noise it picks up. So it's much easier to kind of record it at a level like this and then boost it up afterwards. So when we look at this piece of audio, we've got a nice leading sound. So if we were doing this with the manual process that I've already introduced you into, we would select our room noise, we would go to effect, we would select noise reduction, select our noise sample. We would then apply it to the whole piece. We would then do, any additional posts that we need to do. Well, what if I told you can do all of this with one simple process? By choosing one action will actually perform all of these for you. And that's where Audacity uses macros, much like any other application on the planet. So we're going to create a macro to clean this work up for us. So we're going to click on Tools, and you'll notice you have Macro Manager and Apply Macro. Well, we can't apply a macro we haven't created yet, so let's create the macro to do the things we need to do. So we're going to select Macro Manager, and now we're going to pick New, and we're going to give this a name, and we're going to call it the Wonder of Automation. Why? Because automation is wonderful and it makes us look great. So that nice 2 seconds we left at the front of everything, well, we can automatically or through automation select it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to insert a step, which is a select. And we are going to select, and we're going to set our parameters, so end and start, those are second markers. So right now it's set up for 2 and 0. The very first time you do this, it's going to be 0 and 0, and that's okay. So we're going to leave it here. So now it says, what this specifically means, if we double click on this, it says start time 0, end time 2. So that means select the first 2 seconds of audio. Remember what I said about our leading 2 seconds of clean room noise? Well, we're now selecting it. So one key point, please make sure that you are, when you're going to click insert to add your next step, you are on the step that will follow it, not the one that precedes it. Otherwise you get everything out of order and you'll wonder why your results aren't what you'd expect them to be. So now we're going to insert our next step, and here we've selected, so just by hitting our keyboard we can jump to things by name. So we're going to go to N for noise, and there's our noise reduction. Now, this isn't very clear in the documentation for Audacity, but if you haven't yet collected your noise reference sample, the very first time you run noise reduction, it will use whatever you have selected as your noise sample. So by doing this, we don't have to do anything else. We now told it, hey, select this. This is our noise sample. So now we've got our noise. Now the next thing we need to do is we now need to select the whole body of work. So we're going to go here, we're going to hit S, it jumps us over to select, and there's select all as a macro piece. We've now selected the entire piece of work, same if we were going to manually apply the noise reduction. We're going to insert our next step, which we're going to jump over to noise reduction again. And now we have a noise reduction step. Now, if this was just to even automate the noise reduction process, you've just saved yourself 4 clicks down to 1. And that's pretty cool, but we can do more at the same time. Obviously, looking at this piece, we need to get some more volume to it. So in this piece, because there wasn't really a lot of highs and lows, we're only going to use normalization on this piece. So we're going to insert, and we're going to add a normalization step. And we hit N, and there's normalize. And you can see by default, it keeps your standard normalization settings. Don't ask why that was changed. I was playing with something. And anyway, so now we've got our normalization steps. If there was any other things we needed to do, if, for example, your breaths are really quiet and noise gate will pick them up, well, you can apply a noise gate here. If you're bad for a lot of mouth noise and end up with a lot of clicks, well, you can add click removal here as well. Anything that you always need to do to your work, or any string that you do regularly, you can create macros for. So I actually have a compression macro, a normalization macro. I also have, because those are the 2 things I generally need to do. And usually on any piece I need to do compression. I have clicks in it, so I usually do click removal as well as part of that. But this is just to kind of walk you through everything you can do. And when you click on insert, you can see any command you can do by clicking on the parameters at the top, you can do through here. You can apply other plugins. So if you have a plugin, like if you've got an EQ plugin that is absolutely perfect and gives you the golden voice, you can apply it here as well. My personal advice is don't do anything that you can't reproduce outside of your DAW. You never want your voice to be some mythical unicorn that only exists within your audio chain. You want to be everything you apply here should be polished. It should never be a change. Personal advice, it's going to make your life much simpler, because if you ever find yourself in a situation where a client needs a quick update, you're on the road, and the only thing you have to do record with is your phone, you want to be able to pretty reliably reproduce what you would normally give them. You don't want to be reliant on your audio chain to make your voice into something it isn't regularly. The whole point of this is to sell your ability to act, your ability to perform. Your voice is just a tool. And you want to keep that tool as simple as possible so it's as reliable as possible. Anyway, off my soapbox and back to this. So we've now created our macro, so we can go ahead and close this, and it's going to say, hey, do you want to save the changes? Absolutely. Now, to use this, all I have to do is click on Tools, Macro, and Apply Macro. What if I told you we can do this in one set of key presses? That's right. So Audacity supports custom hotkeys as well. So now if we go over into Edit and we pick Preferences and we wander over to Keyboard specifically, and by default you'll be sorted by tree, so we're going to sort by name, and we're going to go find Apply Macro. So here's our new macro, the Wonder of Automation, and I want a set of keys to activate that for us. So I'm going to do Shift-Control-9 just because it's not a set of keys I use for anything else. And we're going to say, and we're going to set that. So now you'll notice here it's populated beside it. It says Control-Shift-9. Let me say, okay, so now I'm in Audacity and I want to apply my Wonder of Automation. Well, if I do Shift-Control-9, Bob's your uncle, all the work I would have done in 7 or 8, 10 clicks is now done by pressing 3 keys at the same time. Doesn't sound like much, but if you're trying to do 20 auditions in a day, you just got time to do 21 or 22 by spending the same amount of time. So this is a big time saver overall and something you really want to consider to automate. That's it, guys. It's that easy. If you have any other questions, drop them in the comments. I'd be happy to build more videos if there's things that are troubling you guys. All in all, though, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video.